Namo Shuddhaya Krishna Vistava Shimate Bhakti Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswata Devi Gauravani Prachadane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashtacharesha Tarane Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Vedanta Shri Gaur Bhakti Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama. This is a presentation of Bhagavad-gita according to more or less Bhagavad Gita's commentary on it, going through the various chapters. So, first chapter is actually just an introduction, not too much philosophical content in it, and it describes the beginning of the battle. Bhagavad-gita occurs just before the battle of Kurukshetra, conversation between Krishna and Arjuna. And through that conversation, Arjuna is persuaded to fight because that's the will of Krishna. So in spite of the fact that the war itself is full of violence, the teachings that Krishna gives to Arjuna are quite the opposite. And there's a big contrast between the war that took place and the teachings of Krishna. If you go to the Mahabharata, then we will have to see elaborate descriptions of the battles that took place, and also all the killing and all the blood, and the slaughter and the suffering that was there in that battle. But at the same time, we find the teachings are quite different from that. They're taught here in Bhagavad-gita. So, we have this a situation of great calamity occurring, and in the midst of that calamity, we have these teachings of Bhagavad-gita. So the teachings of Bhagavad-gita occur in the Mahabharata, but they've been taken out, and in themselves they stand as a set of teachings, and they also become quite popular because they summarize the Vedic teachings. Sometimes we call it the Gita Upanishad, Gita Upanishad, which indicates that it represents the teachings that come from the Upanishads. And the Upanishads are considered to be the topmost part of the Vedas, because they teach jnana rather than karma. So the Bhagavad-gita is the essence of the Upanishads, just as the Brahma Sutras are also the explanation of the Upanishads. Unfortunately, the Brahma Sutras are difficult to understand, and therefore Veda Vyasa has written Mahabharata and Bhagavad-gita to make everything very simple. So obviously the teachings are going to be the same as the Upanishads and the rest of the Vedas, but in a simplified way so that more people can understand them. So the work has become very famous. All the Vaishnava Acharyas have written commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita as well. Shankaracharya has written commentary. Other Mayavadis have also written commentaries. And many people in the modern world have also written commentaries on the Bhagavad-gita from many points of view. So it's a very popular work as well. But we should try to actually understand the meaning, the correct meaning of the Bhagavad-gita. So therefore we have to go through the Vaishnava Acharyas to get that proper meaning. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we have two commentaries. One by Baladeva Vibhushan, the other by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. And they actually wrote them very, let's say, time-wise, very close together, because Baladeva Vibhushan was more or less a Shiksha disciple of Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. But they wrote completely different types of commentaries. So Bhagavad-gita's commentary more or less sticks to traditional Vedic view of things, analyzing the different teachings in terms of Vedic tradition. Whereas Vishnu Chakravarti takes the whole work from the viewpoint of rasa, and therefore kind of speak in relation to bhakti as we know it. Bhagavad-gita interprets it in terms of varnas and ashrams. So, in any case, it has become a principal work of giving a statement of the essence of Dharma. So, as I mentioned, the first chapter is more or less an introduction. It sets the scene more or less. We'll find in all many epic works, poetic works, not only in India but in other countries, they will have descriptions of wars, and when they do that, then they'll have descriptions of all the little details, who was on what side, so they list all the different warriors, etc. So this is a common device we find not only in the Sanskrit epics, but even in the Greek epics. So when they have the wars and the Iliad and Odyssey, and there's a whole description of all the warriors that were there on both sides. You know, all these battle details like that. So this we find in chapter 1 of the Bhagavad-gita as well. It's a big long list of names, so what's the use of all of this? That's a tradition to describe the various persons involved in the battle. And of course, after the Bhagavad-gita, when the war is fought, then all of these personalities start actually showing their personalities when they're fighting. The first chapter starts out with this little introduction by describing the place Kurukshetra. Dhritarashtra asked, "What did my sons and the sons of Pandu do on the battle and the field of Kurukshetra?" So the place actually is quite significant. It's called Dharma Kshetra, which means the field of Dharma, or religious activity, or piety. So unfortunately, we find that a battle is going to take place there, which looks a little bit violent, or like fighting in a church or something in the Western world. So this is a holy place, and they're going to have a big battle here in Kurukshetra. But it also indicates that that place of the battle also indicates who's going to win. So those people who represent Dharma, those people are going to win the battle, and that means the Pandavas will win. And the Kurus, headed by Dhritarashtra's son Duryodhana, they will lose as a result, because the place itself is significant, the place of Dharma. So that very first verse indicates a conflict between Dharma and Adharma. So we find there are different statements in the scriptures, including the Vedas themselves, Shruti. For instance, Baladev Vibhusan quotes from the Jabala Upanishad, and it glorifies Kurukshetra. Kurukshetra Devanam Deva Yajanam Sarvesham Bhutanam Brahma Saranam. Kurukshetra is a place for sacrifice to the Devatas by those who are like the Devas. It is the abode of Brahman for all living beings. So a very, very holy place. And we see from ancient times it's being celebrated as being very, very sacred. So, a kshetra is a field, and in the field we have, farm field that is, you sow the seeds, and you grow your plants, your grains. Sometimes weeds will grow up in the garden, and sometimes the weeds are very clever because they look just like the plant that you're planting. So in Bengal there is something called Shamgach. And it looks very much like the rice plant. So when you plant your rice, it grows up, waiting for it to grow, then it sprouts up, and you keep watering it, etc. And then you expect, okay, finally I'm going to get rice out of this. But the Shamgach comes along, and it also grows up there. And the farmer doesn't, if he's foolish, he doesn't know this is a weed. And he's cultivating these weeds, and he's carefully watering them and making them grow. They grow, and then finally he's waiting for the rice to come out. Nothing happens. He gets weed seeds instead. So sometimes we get field with grains, and the weeds are also stuck there. And those weeds will obstruct the growth. They may overcome the whole field. So they have to be pulled out. One has to recognize the weeds and pull them out. So, Kurukshetra is the kshetra, or the field of the Kurus, and it's the field of Dharma Kshetra, it's the field of Dharma. So that's where Dharma should grow. And then we have the people following Adharma, the weeds, they have to be pulled out. So this is the implication in that first verse of the Bhagavad-gita, indicating that the Duryodhana and his brothers are the weeds, and they will be pulled out in order that the proper Dharma flourishes. So this battle was a battle for the throne. Who should rule the world? And it was a traditional line of kings, going back to ultimately to Vajrasata Manu. And then after 28 cycles of yugas or whatever, then finally it came down to the time of Krishna. But the line was continued somehow or other, the Manu's line, and the kings all were attached to that line. This is of course, now they keep expanding, and sons and daughters and whatever like that, so we get a very complicated historical line coming up here, all coming from ultimately from Vajrasata Manu, over millions and millions of years. Obviously, the whole family spreads out in many directions like this. But finally, we come to the beginning of Kali Yuga, just before Kali Yuga starts, and this is where the whole battle takes place. Who is going to rule the world at that point? The rightful heirs to the descendants of Manu. So that's why we get lists of all these different personalities involved in the war. Some people were on Duryodhana's side, some were on the side of the Pandavas. So we get a whole genealogy. Of course, the one line, the original line from Vajrasata Manu was the sun line, and this we get Ramchandra. Out of that, we also get the moon dynasty coming out. And from that, we get the Yadus, etc. And then finally, we get to Krishna and that dynasty. So, and this is where we get a very long line of personalities originally coming from Vajrasata Manu. So the Moon Dynasty is one part of it, and the other part was the Kuru Dynasty within there, which is also very complicated. Because we have it's not just direct marriage and sons, etc. Then we get the stepfathers and things like that getting introduced, etc. So it becomes very complicated. And finally, we get the Pandavas coming out of this, and Yudhishthira was to be the eldest of the sons of Pandu. He was supposed to be the heir to the throne, and Dhritarashtra in his line was disqualified. One, because Dhritarashtra was blind. Second, his son was a rascal. He was a dharma, so he shouldn't rule the throne. it is said that when he was born, there were all inauspicious signs. Donkeys were screaming at his birth. And when Krishna was born, we have all nice things happening. Brahmins chanting Vedic mantras, the fires light up in the middle of the night, the lotuses bloom, and all auspicious signs. When Duryodhana was born, the acids are braying and the coyotes are howling, etc. So very inauspicious whole birth and everything after that. So the line of Dhritarashtra was not qualified to rule at all.
So Maharaj is Vidura on that show.
Vidura would be, let's see, Satyavati, which
Maybe he should have been Dhritarashtra, but maybe he's omniscient there.
No, he will be on the other chart because but when we get Dhritarashtra coming out of Ambika, they missed him for some reason, yeah. So because he came from the maidservant. So therefore he won't be part of the line technically. For that reason, he was excluded from the line, so that's why they don't put him here. Then he was, of course, Yamaraj incarnated. Okay.
There was a daughter as well.
What's that?
There was a female child, the 100 sons, and there was also
A daughter. What's her name? Dusha, what's her name? 100 sons and one daughter. What happened to her? Who did she marry?
Mayor or something.
Anyway, she didn't fight in the battle, so she wasn't killed there. So there's a discussion in this first chapter about killing. Is it right to kill or not to kill, or whatever like that? If we kill, we get sinful reactions. So this becomes a sort of a problem for Arjuna, because he has to kill. Not only has to kill, he has to kill relatives, including relatives that he likes, like Bhishma. He has to fight and kill them. So then he says, well, this is very sinful. So there's a whole discussion about what is violence and whatever. And one can quote for both sides, don't kill and for killing. So if we quote from Arthashastra, that is the Smritis, those like Manusmriti, Vajisha Smriti, etc. They're very practical. So they will say, okay, the arsonist, one who poisons, one who attacks with weapons, the thief, the stealer of property, the stealer of one's wife are considered aggressors. Without consideration, one should kill the aggressors, as there's no fault in killing. So it's not, you don't commit a sin by killing these types of people who are unlawful aggressors. So no problem. That's Arthashastra. Dharma Shastra, however, is a little more idealistic, and we get statements of Mahim Sat Sarvabhutani, do not afflict any divinity. So therefore we have a problem, because we have different scriptures saying different things. One says you can kill, the other says don't kill. So what do we do? We have a conflict in scripture itself, not just in normal life, but the scripture itself that we're going to, there's a conflict here. One says you can kill, the other says don't kill. So, there's a hierarchy of scriptures. Which scripture is stronger than the other? Just like we have Tamasic Puranas like Shiva Purana, Skanda Purana. Then we have Sattvic Puranas like Vishnu Purana and Bhagavatam, Padma Purana. If there's a contradiction, we take the stronger Puranas, the Sattvic Puranas, over the Tamasic Puranas. So similarly, here we have Arthashastra and Dharma Shastra. Of the two, the Dharma Shastras are stronger than the Arthashastras. So therefore the idea of don't kill is a stronger statement that you can kill your aggressors, etc. So that's one way of solving this contradiction. So this is the position that Arjuna takes. I shouldn't kill because, the scriptures tell us don't kill them. We can say he's supported by Dharma Shastras, which say that. And he gives some logical reasons why. With the destruction of the family, the traditional rules of conduct of the family are destroyed. When that Dharma is destroyed, Adharma will conquer all the remaining members of the family. So the head of the family is the man, the husband. He fights in the war, he gets killed, then there's nobody in the family to uphold Dharma anymore. From prevalence of Adharma, the women of the family become contaminated with Krishna. When the women are spoiled, mixed varnas arise. So we have a mixture of varnas, like Brahmana women marrying Kshatriya men or Vaishya or whatever like that. Mixed caste in the family brings hell for those who have destroyed their family members. Moreover, the forefathers fall to hell, being deprived of pinda and water offerings. So it becomes very sinful to mix your marriages, mixed caste marriages. Consequently, everybody suffers. This is one argument given. Because of the killing in the war, we get the Dharma. This produces mixed varnas. Mixed varnas produce sinful life. So, therefore, how do I contact the sin of killing? Let them kill me. Sacrifice my own life. And this is the compensation. Would it be better for me if the sons of Dhritarashtra, weapons in hand, were to kill me without weapons and without opposition? Okay. So he won't even fight. So not opposing them will be my prayaschitta or atonement for the sin of thinking of killing relatives. This is most beneficial, removing sin just by this prayaschitta at the end of life when they kill me. And Bhishma will also not incur sin by killing me in this manner. So that's why we see Arjuna laying down his weapons and say, okay, we won't fight. Because this is an atonement. And simply by thinking of killing his relatives, then he incurs sin. So by not fighting and dying, then he gets rid of that sin. So this was his logical conclusion, or his understanding, based on his knowledge of scriptures. And he went to Krishna. And he was described how he was lamenting and very disturbed. He sat down on the chariot, not willing to fight. So he had a problem. Should he fight or not fight? On the one hand, he was saying, okay, I shouldn't fight, but he wasn't quite sure also. That's why he came to Krishna. So behind this, we find a confusion about how to interpret scriptures, and ultimately, what is the whole goal in life? What are we fighting for? And what's the ultimate goal for us? So this is the problem that concludes chapter 1. What should I do? That's Arjuna's plight. In spite of the fact he's given some logical arguments that Dharma is superior to Artha, therefore I shouldn't fight. Because scriptures say, don't afflict any living entity. So, any question there?
All the soldiers of Krishna were also opposite to Krishna. Because when Krishna, when
He gave his soldiers to
say you choose either me or
yeah, so he chose the army.
so they don't choose the army. So Krishna, Arjuna also knew all the army of Krishna.
Yeah.
So
And to fight them.
he was also thinking that
We have to fight them also.
yeah, fight against them, they were friends.
Yeah. But it's also said that everybody that died on the battlefield, etc., they all got liberated. I mean, saw Krishna, so liberated, so there's no loss for anybody there.
I'm sure Prabhupada was talking about that in a lecture, the first line, what did my sons and the sons of Pandu do?
Yeah.
So he made a distinction between his sons and the sons of Pandu.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, because he was complicit, he knew that they had nothing, they just come out of exile, they wouldn't even give him a point of land.
Yeah.
He said that this morning, they wouldn't give him a pinpoint of land to live on. So they actually expected, the workers expected that they had nothing, so when they declared war, they thought it'd be a pushover because they didn't have any assets. But so when they lined up in those battlefields, they saw that it had 7 Shaheedis, and Durandal was quite surprised that they had such a big army, even though this was bigger, they didn't expect that they'd have such a big army.
Yeah.
This is Srila Prabhupada saying.
And of course, then Krishna had given his army to the opposite side also.
Yeah,
So nevertheless, they got some support.
yeah. So that's just to enhance the fact that Arjuna had Krishna on his side didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Just on the first verse, it's the only time Dhritarashtra speaks. Like he asks that question, but the rest he doesn't say anything. I guess he's just listening. Basically.
Yeah, and Sanjaya speaks the whole thing.
You mentioned about Artha and Dharma, but then someone like Krishna that Krishna comes as the incarnation of Lord Chaitanya, and instead of being justified to kill someone who poisons or does something bad, they are treated with compassion and given the holy name. So one may say, why should I fight or why should I do my duty, dharmic duty, when I can take the path of what Lord Chaitanya said?
Well, yeah, of course, this one, the quote here is the violence part of it. So over violence on certain grounds you can have violence, and then the higher one, Dharma, is no violence. For the devotees, of course, generally, unless they're very renounced and qualified for renunciation, then they're obligated to follow the Dharmic rules. They follow the Dharmic rules. But then, of course, we see that Arjuna also was following Dharma because he was obeying Krishna when he fought. So in that case, it wasn't, don't harm any living entity. The Dharma also included following the order of Krishna and supporting Dharma as a king. So then he fought.
So in Chaitanya Lila, the Lord Chaitanya was very well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam, so it's a lot of the philosophy was there from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Was there much mention of Lord Chaitanya quoting Bhagavad-gita though?
He doesn't quote too much, mainly Bhagavatam. You'll find Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah.
Of course, he does mention in the, when Ramananda Roy starts quoting Bhagavad-gita a little bit, then he says, no, because Sarvadharma Pajajas, that's external. Tell me something else higher, because he wants to get into rasa. And our acharyas also, they don't quote Bhagavad-gita profusely. Usually it's Bhagavatam that they're quoting in different discussions like Jiva Goswami. And of course the Sundarbas basically is all taken from, mainly taken from Bhagavatam verses. Once in a while they'll quote a few Bhagavad-gita verses, but not too many actually. It's mostly from Bhagavatam.
So, also different people present that Narayana expanders
Krishna.
and Arjuna, and
Yeah.
some say Narayana came from Krishna and Arjuna. So, how do you understand?
Yeah, because there are statements like that, just like the statement of the 2 hairs of Vishnu, the black and white hair of Vishnu became Krishna and Balaram, like that. So in the Krishna Sandarbha, then Jiva Goswami explains all those different verses and other verses. And then he ultimately says that it's the other way around. Krishna and Arjuna expand into Narayana. It's not the other way around. The Narayana expand, they expand into Narayana. And because of the, let's say, the way that Sanskrit is, sometimes you can take the verse either way.
The point that Athena is making that the women become contaminated, the mixed Varna and the multiple population, looks like it's today's Kali.
Oh yeah.
There is no matching of Varna, there is no people born out of illicit connections. So basically a multiple population creates distractions in the world.
Yeah. The Varnas mix. And then there's a confusion about what Varna you're in. So then they don't follow any Varna, and then they don't follow any rules, and then we end up with a useless population. Because the Varna is there to define your occupation. So when that's not fixed, then everybody's in the problem. What's my job? And they get
so I think it's important that we match people with the proper Varna or visibility.
Well, as much as possible. It's a little bit difficult nowadays because, if the whole system's destroyed more or less.
But still natural tendency of people are there. Maybe more running or just mix or whatever, There is some kind of matchmaking we can make or taking proper children.
In respect to that, so the way the society is shaped these days is that students, they all go to university, they all learn computer programs, doesn't matter what course they do. And they all sit in an office behind a computer, so it's sort of like, it's almost like what you call it, ethereal, like whatever the bond is, you're sort of doing it in cyberspace, in the cyberspace farmers or something, because you're all behind the computers.
Well, technically, most people are in Sudra occupations because they're employed by somebody else. So if you're a Vaishya, you're not employed by anybody. If you're Kshatriya, you're not employed by others. So Brahmin, you're not employed. So it's the Sudras that are employed. So basically, everybody's working for somebody else in the society. They run their Sudra occupation, no matter what they think they are in terms of what they're doing, because they're dependent on another person. And therefore, that person can control what they should do and think and live or whatever like that. So very difficult to escape from, the touches of the employer. Okay, so chapter 2 is begins the discourse, the actual philosophical elements get introduced quite quickly. Arjuna approaches Krishna because he takes him as his authority, not only as his friend but as his teacher, and he asks him, and then Krishna gives his reply. So Arjuna was doubtful about what actually he should do, what's his goal in life, you go to Svargaloka or whatever. And then Krishna begins to answer in the second chapter. If we don't define the goal, then we cannot define what we're supposed to do, our action. So the two things go together, the prayojana and the abhideya, the action and the goal. If we just do action without the goal defined, then it's useless. Right? So first we have to figure out what the goal is, then we can define what you're supposed to do. Get the goal, and then fight or not fight, then we can determine whether it's proper according to attaining the goal. So we have to define the goal. So, in Bhagavad-gita, we get different activities that Arjuna can do. You can do karma yoga, you can do jnana yoga, you can do astanga yoga, or you can do bhakti yoga, or you can do a combination of these. But the goal has to be there. What is the ultimate goal? But then they're all, permissible. We can do any of them as long as we know what the goal is. If you don't know the goal, then they're all useless. So, in other words, a process without a specific goal has no meaning and it doesn't go anywhere. So the Bhagavad-gita is organized in such a way to lead one from one process to the next. So we have karma yoga to purify you from the lower gunas. To get to sattva 1, we get jnana yoga and astanga yoga to give you knowledge of Atma. Then we get Bhakti Yoga to give you knowledge of Supreme Lord. This produces prema, which is the ultimate goal. And so all of these processes just line up towards prema. So that's how we have to view the different yogas which are described in the Bhagavad-gita. It's all going in the direction of realizing Supreme Lord and getting prema. That's the goal. So the processes don't work if we don't have that goal in mind. So, to begin with, Krishna explains knowledge of the soul. You're not the body, you're eternal, etc. Then he makes the point that there's a soul and there's a Supreme Lord. Never was there a time when you do not exist or I exist, etc. Distinguishes Lord from Jiva. He starts a method of realizing Atma, and he also encourages Arjuna to do Nishkama Karma Yoga as the best action, because Arjuna is saying, what should I do? And then Krishna says, you do action, karma, but without material desire, Nishkama Karma Yoga. And then after that, Krishna discusses the nature of a person who is realizing Atma, maybe partially realizing or more fixed in his realization. It's called the Sthita Prajna, one who's fixed in his knowledge. So those are the basic topics that are discussed in the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita. So we see it's leading towards action, but we see that this action, the karma yoga, cannot be independent. It has to lead ultimately to the final goal of prema, to these other processes. So that's why after describing jnana and then karma yoga, and then Krishna goes back to jnana again, he goes back and forth like this, and then finally he comes to yoga, then he comes to bhakti by end of chapter 6. So, Arjuna has a qualification. Krishna starts out simply by giving him some jnana. You're not the body or the soul, etc. Just like the person who gives up his old clothing, puts on new clothing, etc. So that's the first teaching he gives. And he does this because Arjuna actually is highly qualified. He has control of his senses and mind. Because he says in chapter 1, what's the use of a king to enjoyment living? He's very detached from material things. He's indifferent to the enjoyment of this life and next life. I don't care if they kill me and I have sovereignty over the 3 worlds or whatever, it doesn't matter. He's got tatiksha. He says it's better to live by begging. And he has shraddha, he has faith in the words of Guru. So these are his qualifications, and based on these qualifications, then Krishna begins to speak to him. So that we'll see here where Arjuna makes his first request. My nature of fighting has been overcome by a lack of understanding Brahman. My mind is bewildered about Dharma. I therefore ask you what is best for me. Please tell me with certainty. I am your student. Please instruct me, who have surrendered to you. So he has proper faith in the words of Krishna. So that's a good qualification. And so at this point, of course, Bhagavad-gita makes the point of necessity of Guru in order to get knowledge. And he quotes. So these are some famous quotations from the Upanishads. One from the Munda Upanishad, the other from Chandogya Upanishad. Tad Vijnanartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet Samit Pani Strokaryam Brahmanishtam and Acharyavan Purusho Veda. So these are quite often quoted by Prabhupada also in various places. Very famous quotations. Actually, they don't refer to a Diksha Guru, they refer to a Shiksha Guru. So, and anyway, some guru was necessary for teaching or learning. Holding firewood in one's hand, which means one's subservient, is willing to do service, one should certainly approach the guru who has knowledge of the Vedas and is fixed in Brahman and gaining knowledge of the Lord. And a person who has a guru knows the Lord. That's from Chandogya Upanishad. So the Vedic literatures, like the Upanishads, they emphasize the necessity of having an authoritative person, the guru, to give the knowledge. So, previously we talked about the statements of the Artha Shastras and the Dharma Shastras, and Dharma is superior to Artha. But this is not satisfying to Arjuna. I do not see what can remove this sorrow which is drying up my senses, even by obtaining an unrivaled prosperous kingdom on earth or sovereignty over the Devatas. I cannot dispel this sorrow. So if Arjuna fights according to Dharma, he gets to Svargaloka in the next lifetime, but he cannot relieve himself of lamentation from killing his relatives. Since fighting will not take away my lamentation, please tell me how fighting is beneficial. So he can get Svargaloka, but Arjuna won't feel well. He'll lament, so how can it be beneficial? So in response to that, then Krishna says, while lamenting for what is not worthy of grief, you are speaking words of wisdom. The wise men do not suffer for the gross bodies, the subtle bodies, or the souls, because the souls are eternal. So there's no suffering attached to the, ultimately to the, when one kills another person. It's that body that dies only. And don't lament, because anyway, everybody has to die. They may die of sickness, they may die by killing, they may die of old age or whatever, but everybody dies, so why lament? You're going to die sooner or later. That's the gross body. Subtle body. Don't just lament for the subtle body, because subtle body won't die. It goes to body to body. It's almost eternal. You kill the gross body, the subtle body doesn't die, which contains your mind, your false ego, your desires, your karma, etc. So that remains with you life after life. So you don't have to lament if you kill the gross body, because that remains and goes into the next body. One should not lament for the soul, because it is devoid of the six changes and is eternal. So the body undergoes birth, existence, increase, transformation, decay, and dying. But the soul doesn't. So don't lament for the soul, don't lament for the subtle body, and don't lament for the gross body, because anybody's going to die. That's argument given. So, as I said, it defines the person as actually the Atma, not the material body. Very significant point, which is not clarified in many religions of the world. They don't talk about that at all. They don't define the nature of the Atma as opposed to the material body. It's very unclear. But here at the very beginning of Bhagavad-gita, we find very clear distinction. It's step number one of the spiritual life is to distinguish the Atma from the material body. But not only that, at the same time, in the second chapter, right after talking about the Atma, that Krishna indicates the difference between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord. So there is a difference. It's not that the Jivas are the Supreme Lord. They're different. Never have I not existed, nor you, nor these kings, nor in the future shall we not exist. So Krishna says, I existed in the past, I exist in the future. You exist in the past, you exist in the future. Everybody else exists in the past, they exist in the future. They're not one, they're different. So this is emphasized by all the different acharyas, the Vaishnava acharyas. This statement shows that the Jiva doesn't merge into Brahman. And of course we have so many statements from the Upanishads, like the statement from the Svetasvara Upanishad. He's eternal among all eternal entities, the chief consciousness among all conscious beings. Among the many living entities, he is the chief who fulfills their desires. This is Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam, also often quoted. So the Lord is the chief among all the living entities. Chief conscious being, chief eternal. So there is a distinction between Jiva and Supreme Lord. That's made very clear in the very beginning of the teachings also. So we have some remarkable statements here. One, you're not the body, you're the soul. Second, the soul is not God. God is also there, Jiva is also there. The basic, say, Sambandha Gyan is given in the first few verses of the second chapter of Bhagavad-gita. As the soul passes through boyhood, youth, and old age, so he attains another body in death. The wise are not bewildered by this. Okay? And so, as I mentioned previously, don't lament for the body because it's going to die anyway. But not only that, and the soul's eternal, but then you get another body. So you lose one body when you get another body. So no lamentation for that. But rather, you should, when you die, you should rejoice. Because you're going to get a fresh body, a new body that's not old, it's not full of disease. So, and this is, of course, a logical argument used to convince Arjuna. Nevertheless, true. O son of Kuni, the experience of the sense objects gives sensations of cold and hot, happiness and distress. O Bharata, tolerate these experiences of the sense objects as they are always temporary, appearing and disappearing. So, this is the teaching of tolerance of our condition in the material body. So, Arjuna should tolerate the present position, even though it's uncomfortable and involves some suffering, in order that he execute Dharma. If we do Dharma properly, which is Karma Yoga, then Jnana appears. From Jnana, we get liberation. Once you got to that stage, then you don't have to follow the rules anymore. Okay? But if we give up Dharma without getting fixed in Jnana, then this becomes useless. So first we have to fix ourselves in the rules of Dharma, then we get to Jnana, then we get liberation, then we can give up the rules. So therefore, in the process of executing Dharma, we have to tolerate the inconveniences that it will cause. So here a point that's made also in talking about knowledge of Atma, etc., that we get knowledge of Atma and then knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So this is a common procedure in the Upanishads to talk about preliminary knowledge, Jnana, knowledge of Atma, and then particular knowledge, Vijnana, knowledge of the Supreme Lord. So we can go to Jnana and understand we're not the Atma, but from there we proceed to Bhakti. Yeah? So in that sense, Jnana becomes favorable for Bhakti. It's a favorable element because we understand we're not the body. So but it doesn't end there. We go further and we understand Supreme Lord. There's a quote here from the Svetasvatara Upanishad. When the yogi, after knowing about the unborn, unchanging, pure Lord of all his ornaments, realizes that Supreme Lord through realization of the Atma, which is like a lamp, he attains liberation from bondage. So first he realizes Atma, then he realizes Supreme Lord. And so there's a progression from Karma Yoga to Jnana Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. So once he's qualified by realizing Atma, then he becomes qualified for knowledge of Supreme Lord. So therefore, first understand about Atma, then Arjuna, then we understand about Supreme Lord. So that's why Krishna begins by teaching Jnana. So, how do we become fixed in jnana? You do the dharma. So you do dharma, karma yoga, especially nishkama karma yoga, then we get to jnana, then we get to bhakti. Even considering your own duties, you should not be fearful. There's nothing better for a warrior than to fight for the right cause. So this is the action, and this is the karma yoga. Do your duties as kshatriya. By that you get fixed in jnana. From that, then you go to bhakti. So Bhagavat-gita also introduces the concept of three types of devotees: the sanishta devotee, the parinishta devotee, and the nirapeksha devotee. So the sanishta and the parinishta follow karma yoga. The nirapeksha does not. He simply does bhakti. So of these first two, the sanishta, he is a little bit attached to following his karma yoga rules. He has to try to do it nishkama, without material desires. So by following karma yoga and giving up material desires, then the person becomes fixed in atma-jnana. From there he can go to bhakti. So, nishkama karma yoga is preferable to sakarma karma yoga. Clear about knowledge of nishkama karma yoga, engaging yourself using the knowledge of yoga, so that you will become free from the bondage of karma. And in this process, there's no loss by incomplete performance, no sin incurred by imperfection in the performance. One is protected from birth and death, even by practicing a little of this process. So this is a glorification of nishkama karma yoga over sakama karma yoga. Duties executed with desire, that's sakama karma, yield results only if executed to the conclusion of all ceremonies intact. So this is like the karma kandi people, they do sacrifices. If they don't complete the sacrifice, they lose everything. No svargaloka. Make a mistake, they can't get the svargaloka. Everything has to be done perfectly. If some of the elements, such as the mantras, are defective or absent, then contrary results appear. You don't go to svargaloka. But actions performed without desire, that's nishkama karma yoga, to the best of one's ability, even if they're not done completely, or with defect, or missing elements, or misplaced mantras, yield the result in the form of steadiness and jnana. And because the process has the goal of atma and includes utterance in the name of the Lord, no sin is incurred. So that's why nishkama karma yoga is preferable to sakama karma yoga. You can make mistakes, no problem. You should also include name of the Lord in it and have the goal of atma. In this process, resolute intelligence is fixed only on the Atma Osana Gurus. The Gurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute as infinite objects of desire with many branches. Also a very famous verse, Yapasatma Kabudi. The Lord distinguishes the intelligence directed towards nishkama karma from the intelligence directed towards kamya karma or sakama karma. So the nishkama karma yoga, we fix ourselves on atma, no material desires. And then he says the intelligence of those who are irresolute have infinite objects of desire with many branches. That's the sakama karma or kamya karma. Consciousness purified by nishkama karma, taken as a form of worship of the Lord, the intelligence firmly ascertaining Davasattva Buddhi, that one will realize the true nature of Atma through jnana, contained within nishkama karma, like a lotus arising from the root, has that intelligence as only one object. So we're going for Atma and then for Supreme Lord. You have suitability for prescribed work. This is karma yoga, but not for desiring the results of the work. So it's nishkama karma yoga. Do not be the cause of results of work by desiring results. Do not be attached to non-performance of work. Don't think you can just do nothing. Krishna says, I'm the enjoyer of those actions. You don't have jurisdiction over the results. This mentality of attachment to the results causes bondage. I am the enjoyer of the results. Actions performed without desire will produce within themselves steadiness in jnana. So karma yoga, if it's done with nishkama, it leads to atma and jnana. Okay. He who is engaged in nishkama karma yoga destroys both pious and impious reactions. Therefore, engage in this yoga in all types of actions. Performance without attachment is a skill. So he can destroy karmas by doing nishkama karma yoga. This engagement in action, being joined with intelligence, is a skill because it transforms actions which normally are a cause of bondage into causes of liberation by contact with intelligence, like mercury, which is being purified of its poisonous effects. So we can do action, but it won't be contaminating. Actions usually do karma. We do actions properly as a skill, karma yoga, nishkama karma yoga, and they will cause liberation. So that if a person is doing nishkama karma yoga, his goal is atma, understanding he's not the body, he's the soul. A person who gets fixed in that atma is called the sthita pragya. And then our Krishna spends some verses explaining the nature of the sthita pragya. When a person completely gives up all desires situated in the mind, is known as sthita pragya, becomes completely satisfied with his Sarup or the Lord. That's Atmanam, whose essence is self-manifesting bliss, his mind having withdrawn itself from material desires. So he withdraws from material desires and focuses upon spiritual things, the Atma, the Supreme Lord. When he easily withdraws all of his senses completely from sense objects, like a turtle withdrawing its limbs, he is situated in pragya. So the senses no longer indulge in material enjoyment. So just like the turtle. The person who, after restraining all the senses, becomes devoted to me, so here Krishna is actually bringing up directly himself, that means devotion to the Lord, will maintain steady realization of Atma. He whose senses have thus been brought under control is sthita pragya. So you cannot actually become fixed in Atma unless you also involve the Supreme Lord. So it means this jnana does not exist unless there's some bhakti there also. In other words, by power of devotion to me, while maintaining control of the senses, the person will very easily attain a vision of Atman. Thus the Smritis say, and here's a from Vishnu Purana, just as fire with upraised flames, assisted by the wind, burns dry wood, Vishnu, situated in the heart, burns up all the sins of the yogis. Yeah. So, in other words, jnana is not an independent process. It also has some bhakti in it. And it's that bhakti which gives its result of realizing the Atman. Any question?
From the this karma, the yoga later, the next one would be jnana or something like jnana yoga?
Yeah. So we have the sakkama karma yoga at the bottom, where you do your duties of varnashram dharma, but you're trying to get to higher material position of svargaloka. When you give up those desires, you still do those same activities. It's called nishkama karma yoga. And that way you control your senses. At the same time, you're not trying to get some material enjoyment out of it. And you're directed towards Atma. When you get fixed there, then you can get into Jnana. So in other words, you rise to Tama Rajagun to Sattvagun. When you're fixed in Sattva, then you're qualified for Jnana. And then you can think about Atma as a different body.
So with Sakkha, you go with Swaga, what's the ultimate goal for
Nishkama. Nishkama, realize Atma, Jnana.
Okay, so just knowledge, basically.
Yeah, knowledge and Atma and finally liberation.
So Atma is the self or the Paramatma?
Well, both, because as I said here, in Siddha Prajna, unless they also worship the Lord, they can't really understand Atma and realize it. So it involves both. But the prominence is on Atma, even when they have a little bit of understanding of the Supreme Lord also.
So understanding of the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
So soon, right, so any process anyone follows with Dharma, yoga, any process, then there has to be some element of bhakti, even if it's unconscious or unknowing, in order to get the result.
Yeah, even karma yoga and going to Svarga Loka, if they don't give respect to Vishnu, they can't get results. They can't get Svarga Loka either. And again, you cannot get liberation unless he also worships the Lord to some degree. You can't offend the Lord.
So they're conscious that they are worshipping the Lord to some degree, or?
Yeah. Well, the scriptures will tell them, okay, if you want to get liberation, you have to worship Vishnu as supreme. So they worship him in order to get liberation, rather than to get prema. But they respect him and worship him. And the same in the, like it says in the sacrifices, Vishnu has to be worshipped. In Karma Yoga, when you're doing sacrifices, you also have to worship Vishnu. So people will worship Vishnu also, and they can get the results. Of course, some are not so, let's say, philosophically inclined, and they will not think of Vishnu as too important or whatnot. But as I said here, unless they follow all the details perfectly, they won't get a result. So therefore, they have to also worship Vishnu, because the scripture says worship Vishnu. So if they don't do it, they won't get any result. So then they're motivated to worship Vishnu also, even though the understanding of Vishnu may not be very spiritual or pure. Okay. Okay.